With Spring League football back and up and running, relatively successful with the UFL, I've had fun looking back at old spring leagues or startup leagues that tried to compete with the NFL. NFL Europe was such an interesting experiment that I feel had it been done right or done today with streaming, it could have been way more successful than it really was back in the 90s and 2000s. A once promising league in Europe that looked like it could turn into world domination by the NFL instead turned into a money pit. This is the story of NFL Europe. This is the story of the NFL's biggest financial misstep of all time. But before we get into this, if you enjoy college football and spring league football content like this, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Also, let me know who your favorite spring league team is, past or present, or NFL Europe team is in the comment section below. Back in 1974, the NFL decided to announce it was going to launch a professional American football league in Europe, originally called the International Football League, or IFL, which was the brainchild of Bob Kapp. The original start date for this league was the spring of 1975 and would feature 6 teams located in Istanbul, Rome, Munich, West Berlin, Vienna, and Barcelona. The IFL was going to be the satellite league for the NFL. The initial funding of the league and rosters were done by NFL owners and NFL rosters. Rosters were going to consist of second-line athletes and rookies. The league seemed off to a great start as they had sold the franchises for the first 6 teams, had 4 more teams in the works. We also had loaning systems for players set up, but in the end, the league would not materialize as the Pro Football Research Association believed Europe was just not ready to have a professional league. Other issues tied to this might have been the World Football League, a player strike, and a recession as well. There was also some turmoil in Europe with world conflicts at the time. The State Department had actually come out and discouraged Commissioner Pete Rozelle from putting together a league in Europe at the time. The nail in the coffin, though, would be when the main sponsor, Pan Am, would pull out of the project. Slowly throughout the 1980s, American football grew in popularity in Europe naturally. The NFL had no marketing done for this growth to occur, though they would capitalize on it, hosting events like the American Bowl and preseason games in Europe, with London usually being the main location. With the success of football in Europe, Pete Rozelle saw an opportunity to once again possibly create a football league there. In 1989, they announced their intentions to create an international spring football league once again. They wanted to use the IFL as their name once again, but would later find out Donald Trump and Charlie Finley owned the name and were in the process of starting their own league that would never come to be. They would instead name the league the World Football League of American Football, aka the WLAF. They wanted to disassociate themselves away from the World Football League and added American football to avoid confusion with soccer being known as football around the world. The league would get approved by the NFL, and original plans were to have 12 teams in total, 6 in the United States, 4 in Europe, and 1 in Canada, as well as Mexico. They would also lock down a television deal with ABC for between $12 and $15 million a year for 2 years, according to the Seattle Times, while USA Network would pay $13 million a year. Before the league would even begin, the president would be fired due to disagreements on the direction him and the NFL wanted to take the league. Tex Schramm wanted the league to be its own independent thing that could be strong enough to stand on its own feet, while the NFL wanted the league to have close ties to it and remain small. The number of teams playing would also drop down to 10, with 3 conferences: the North American East, the North American West, and Europe. Each NFL team would allocate up to 4 players to the WLAF, although only 2, the New Orleans Saints and Kansas City Chiefs, opted to do so. New York Times reporter Gerald Eskenazi would write in March of 1991 that the WLAF would be the first transatlantic major sports league. Opening night would take place in Frankfurt, Germany, Birmingham, Alabama, and Sacramento, California. Never in my mind did I think those 3 cities would be named in the same sentence by me. According to Eskenazi, the uniforms were designed to mimic local city uniforms by other professional teams to increase sales. The Bears and Cardinals would be the only teams not to pitch money in for the league, though. This would be a different game designed more for fans. Teams were forced to play in no-huddle offenses. If the game went to overtime, you needed to win by at least 6 points. Communication between quarterback and coaches would go over the air. no instant replay, and you had to go for two. Sounds like some leagues that are currently playing in the spring right now. Some even thought the WFAL would make more money down the road with the worldwide television deals. The original teams include the Barcelona Dragons, New York, New Jersey Knights, Birmingham Fire, Orlando Thunder, Frankfurt Galaxy, Raleigh-Durham Skyhawks, London Monarchs, Sacramento Surge, Montreal Machines, and the San Antonio Riders. Coaches involved were Mouse Davis, the creator of the run and shoot offense, Jack Elway, former Stanford and San Jose State head coach and father of quarterback John Elway, Kay Stevenson, who was once the youngest head coach in the NFL history, and Mike Riley. London, New Jersey, Birmingham, and Barcelona all would make the playoffs, with London beating Barcelona 21-0 at Wembley Stadium in the first World Bowl in front of 61,000 fans. After the season, the league almost folded due to losing nearly $7 million, with none of the teams turning a profit. Along with that, television ratings were poor on ABC and USA. NFL chairman of the WFLA, Dan Rooney, said they had estimated the cost correctly but overestimated how much money the league would make. With the USA Network losing money, the league risked losing them as a television partner. The WLAF averaged around 26,000 fans a game in its first season. The European teams had higher attendances than the North American teams, bolstering the average. Somehow the league survived due to the NFL backing and would come back for the 1992 season. They would drop the American football part of their league name and just go with the World League. They got rid of their Monday night games, and due to poor attendance, Raleigh-Durham was replaced by the Ohio Glory. Games were going to be shown on a regional basis, and they managed to keep both their television partners. More NFL players were involved with the league this time around, as well as more NFL signage was shown. London would struggle going 2-7, while Frankfurt would go 3-7 this time around. Barcelona, Orlando, Sacramento, and Birmingham would all make the playoffs. Orlando would blow Birmingham out in the semifinal matchup, while Barcelona fell short against Sacramento. Sacramento would beat Orlando in the 1992 World Bowl 21-17 in Montreal. While attendance was great in Europe, with the London Monarchs averaging 45,000 fans a game, attendance was extremely poor in the United States, and so too were the television ratings once again, as they would choose to suspend play for the 1993 and 1994 seasons to regroup after losing $50 million in 2 years. Heading into the 1995 season, the World League would get rid of the American teams and choose to have 6 teams all in Europe. The original European teams returned, along with the Rain Fire, Amsterdam Admirals, and Scottish Claymores, replacing the American teams. At the return of the league in the States, the teams would practice in front of the media in Atlanta. Mark Lowry, the Frenchman who was the president and chief executive officer of the WLAF, told the New York Times in April of 1995, "We are committed to what we call the globalization of American football. American culture, sports, and entertainment are all hot right now, and that's the product we intend to sell to the rest of the world." The league hoped, with the teams not playing in 6 time zones this time around, that more people would tune in. During practicing in Atlanta, the quarterback of the Frankfurt Galaxy had trouble adjusting to the walkie-talkies in their helmet. Signals from the sidelines were getting mixed up with landing instructions from the nearby Air Force Base, which I found really funny reading and researching this video. The New York Times wrote, "The focus will be developing young quarterbacks such as Heisman Trophy winner Gino Torretta of the Rain, Sean Moore of Frankfurt, and Tony Saka from Barcelona. However, each 40-man roster will include 7 locals, mostly European soccer or rugby players." Heading into the 1995 season, many wondered whether the fans would return after having the rug pulled on them earlier. A Barcelona wide receiver told the New York Times, "The people were all asking why. Why did the Dragons stop playing? They had supported the team. They were great, but then it was gone. Nobody could explain why, and they were angry and upset." Rule changes were also made. 4 points were awarded for a field goal of 50 yards or more, while a defense would get 2 points called a deuce for a blocked kick, interception, or fumble return for a touchdown on a point after attempt. You also needed 1 foot in bounds for a catch. Before the 1995 season kicked off, they were considering expanding to Madrid, Paris, Milan, and Helsinki, as well as the Pacific Rim. Fox became a major partner in the league as well. In 1998, The London Monarchs were renamed the England Monarchs in an attempt to spur attendance, which had fallen below 10,000 people per game. They also moved from the Tottenham Hotspur's White Hart Lane to Chelsea's Stamford Bridge Stadium. The Monarchs would fold the following season and were replaced by the Berlin Thunder. Also, they changed their name to NFL Europe in 1998 as well. Basically, the league was a shell of itself after 1997, but continued onward as they celebrated 10 years in 2002. The league was still nowhere near profitable, but the league would agree with a deal with FC Barcelona to promote American football in Europe and soccer in the US, but the venture would be unsuccessful, and the Barcelona Dragons would fold after the 2003 season due to declining attendance. They were replaced by the Cologne Centurions in 2004. In 2005, the Scottish Claymores would fold as well, although they were averaging 10,799 people a game, making it the largest following of any Scottish sports team outside Old Firm. They could not compete with the German teams who were bringing in attendances of 30,000 plus a game. It would be replaced by the Hamburg Sea Devils, making the Admirals the only team outside Germany in the league. This was part of a strategic pivot to Germany, which had been the most receptive country to the league and the sport in general. The league would be renamed NFL Europa, heading into 2007 as they intended to focus on the German and Dutch markets. Hamburg defeated Frankfurt in the title game 37-28 in 2007. After the World Bowl 15, the NFL would finally pull the plug on the league and instead decide to play a few regular season NFL games a year over in Europe. Mark Waller, the senior vice president of NFL International, told the New York Times that the NFL-style football was difficult to translate to foreign fans because of its complexity and because audiences knew they were not seeing the best talent. For the 2007 season, average attendances reached a high of 20,024, the league's final game. But the league's final game, the World Bowl 15 on June 23rd, drew 48,125 fans, far from the glory days of drawing 40,000 fans plus a game for regular season matchups. Waller said there was hope for years that the European media market would help bankroll NFL Europa with rights payments, but in the end, German networks carried none of the league games live. The World Bowl was shown on tape a day later. Guys like Sean Payton, Kurt Warner, Adam Vinatieri, William Refrigerator Perry, and Jake Delhomme all participated in NFL Europe. When the league was hot, it was hot, and it seemed like American football was gaining traction in Europe, but the play on the field was not great and nowhere comparable to the NFL. NFL Europe's best players would all move on to the NFL, while old players who arrived to boost interest and sales were unable to play at the same old level. The league had low quality play on the field, you could not watch the game live in Europe, and they were consistently bleeding money throughout its run, losing the NFL over $400 million in total. Maybe the league could have survived if they did not disappear for 2 years, originally starting in Europe in the first place. Or if streaming was around. Maybe they would have started making money if they had signed broadcast contracts to air games live in Europe, rather than the taped games a day later. There are a lot of maybes, but when all was said and done, money talks, and the league lost a ton of money. In the end, NFL Europe was a testing ground for a lot of things we see today in the NFL, a place where coaches and players could develop, though they did not develop their own European stars to my understanding, which truly was a missed opportunity for marketing the league. What do you think? What caused the demise of NFL Europe? Let me know in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to check out one of my other videos YouTube thinks you will love right here. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, remember to embrace the grind.